All right, it's kind of crazy because California is um is one of the richest states, but has some of the highest poverty. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, they got some of the highest poverty. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Also, in 2018, I just actually found this out today. California was ranked least in state education in the country. Didn't know that. All right, let's talk. Without fanfare or advance notice, the California Department of Education released a list of the state's poorest performing schools last week for the first time in 4 years. The 781 schools, including 41 out of the 6,600 schools getting funding for low-income schools. Let me see what's going on. What is going on here? Without the fanfare in advance, release the lowest performing schools, district schools to get Medicare and financial aid, $150,000 per year, along with the obligation. The lowest performing 7% of schools receiving federal Title I funding as measured by performance of the California School Dashboard. All high schools with graduation rate of less than 67% average over 2 years. What's going on here? What is going on? All right. They're found new autonomy has left some school leaders optimistic but uncertain over what to do next. Some student advocacy groups, meanwhile, are ambivalent. They are supportive of reasoning behind more flexibility, but skeptical it will be effective. There is a sense of confusion, said Alameda County Superintendent Karen Monroe. The new system is imperfect and incomplete, but she said if it encourages a more holistic approach to the school reform than in the past, then I have to believe we will be better off. The big question mark whether the new theory of action will lead to improvement for students, that remains to be seen, said Efren Mercado, the director of education for the advocacy organization Children Now. We now know that the heavy-handed approach didn't work. With a softer touch, one onus shift to district and schools. States' decisions to quietly publish the names in an attempt to encourage a patient process of continuous improvement without the stigma of being labeled a bad school. It reflects California's new locally driven but unproven strategy of challenging student performance through collaboration, not by decree, as well as Congress shift away from the federally dictated solution when it passes every student. I still think what they're doing now is not right. They're taking away D's and F's. They're taking away the ACT and the SAT. And they're not holding parents accountable for their kids not knowing things that they should already know as children. So I think that they're actually sabotaging these children, which is why, these teachers' unions were investing in private prisons. It's almost like, we know there's a school to prison pipeline, but it's like we refuse to acknowledge the willful participation with some of the people in the education. Parents no longer will get the letters telling their school and the school improvement list giving them the right to transfer to a better performing schools. District will no longer be handling a limited menu of options to turn low performing schools around, like becoming a charter school, replacing the principal or firing half the staff, and teachers and principals will no longer face moving adequate yearly progress. Targets of higher test scores to exit from federal sanctions, heartening their resentment that Congress was making an already difficult challenge impossible. These were hallmarks in the 2001 No Child Left Behind law, which members of Congress came to recognize wasn't working but took years to acquire on how to replace it. Like NCLB, the Every Student Succeeds Act requires that states identify the set performance goals for the lowest performing 5% of schools getting Title I money and for the lowest performing student groups within schools, but it requires that states measure schools by more than test scores alone and gives flexibility of what to measure, how to help schools improve for longer sanctions if school failed to show progress. The State Board of Education, in designing the state's plan, went one step further and put districts in charge of fixing their own troubled schools. Dashboard designated. The state used California School Dashboard to identify the lowest performing schools, just as for the lowest performing districts. The multicolored dashboard rates achievement on a range of indicators, including test scores, graduation, suspension, and chronic absenteeism rates. All the schools with all the red indicators designated in the lower five rankings, or a combination of red and orange, the lowest, second lowest, were designated to receive support. The 481 schools make up 7% of the Title I schools, about 180 more than 5% that be identified under a federal law. Increasing the number of schools will cut into each school's share of the 130 million in the California's Title I funding mandated for school improvement. Of the 481 schools, 34 are charter schools and the rest are district schools run by the county departments of education. This list includes 182 elementaries, 120 middle schools, and 38 traditional high schools. All right. That's what it looks like. What y'all think? I don't know. I'm not even going to lie. I'm still a little surprised that California ranked least educated state in the country 4 years ago. That breaks my heart. But it doesn't surprise me because I have a daughter. I witnessed the quality of. I'm not even going to just put it on the teachers because a lot of the parents actually don't follow through it. They're not holding their kids accountable. They don't know, like, they don't even know where their kids are. So I'm not just going to put it on the parents. I mean, and then at the same time, we're talking about California being a place that's the richest and poorest state simultaneously in the country. That's a significant thing. You can't overlook that. But